Okay, I'm hitting
Sure.
record. It is Tuesday, October 27th, and it's almost Halloween. The year
Crazy.
2020 is almost over.
Crazy.
Are we ready?
I hope so.
Oh, the fun is just about to begin.
Oh yeah, election coming up. Everybody vote.
Yeah. Good times.
Okay, so what we want to talk about
Good time.
today is application security, and then I want to touch on some
Little bit.
things that I learned from Apple, which I think is very interesting. So let's start with application security. Chad, you want to dig
Sure.
into that? What does that mean exactly?
Yeah.
What when you say application security, what are we talking about? Are we talking about the applications on our phone, on our computer,
Yeah.
on
Let's
the web?
talk about that. Let's talk about that. This is something that most of us don't know anything about, right? And now that so many more of us are, working online and living online, lots of people have bought domains and built websites in the last 8 months, record numbers. And that's why it's really important to understand that, application security is, to Ben's point, there's application security concerns on the apps that we use on our phone. There's application security concerns for anything that uses code to transmit information. It could be a website. It could be a PDF, a really sophisticated PDF. It could be an application, an app that you download. All these things have security considerations, and the industry as a whole calls it AppSec for short, or application security. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. This isn't going to be a comprehensive course on what it is. We're going to talk about the OWASP top 10 and what OWASP is. OWASP is the Open Web Application Security Project. They've been around forever. Their sole mission is to educate people on application security and help them, kind of raise the cost for criminals when it comes to defacing websites or taking control of websites, or, when our parents were young, our grandparents, and they had a beef with somebody, they would make some signs. They'd go down to the corner and, these guys suck. These guys suck, right? We don't do that anymore. I mean, we do, but there's also another way, which is basically just launching what we call distributed denial of service.
They've been doing that recently on the streets, Chad, just so you're
aware. They have. I know. That's why I say we still do that, but we also have, the ability to, spend $30 on this nasty, malicious script to unleash that and, bring websites down. And there are some really simple things that we can all do to prevent that from happening, right? And recently there's been a lot of sites that have had porn images on them. And they're not really, is there a goal to any of this? No, it's just to ruin somebody's day, right? But we certainly want our clients to look at our website when there's, what does that say about our attention to detail when that happens, right? So we're going to go through
our
a couple
security
things that are,
if we were to get hacked. Although, to be fair, even some very large companies have been hacked, so it's not
very large companies. But we're not talking about corporate level enterprise class security here today. We're talking about like when we go to sleep at night, we would never not lock our doors and windows. Right? So that's what we're talking about today. How do we lock our doors and our windows on our website? Stuff that's really simple. A lot of us think somebody's already taken care of this, and they're not. So it's important for us to understand.
Or if you park, you park downtown Chicago, you park your car on the street, you don't leave it unlocked, and you don't leave a bunch of stuff in the car so that people can walk by and say, "Oh, maybe I should crack that window and see what's in there."
That's a great analogy.
Smash the window.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to leave our an iPad in clear sight in a locked vehicle. That's tempting. Right. So we're going to try to remove some of those tempting indicators through some of these things that we're going to learn about.
Or to take it one step further, Chad, remember those devices that can check whether you have a Bluetooth device in your car?
That's right.
Yeah. So people can. So even if you have an iPad stuck under the seat, if it's on emitting Bluetooth signals, people are going to know. There are ways to walk around and say, "Oh, there's a device in that car. It's worth a smash and grab."
That's right.
Quickly, I used to live in a building where everyone in the building had to park on the street, and we had a string of break-ins. People would go out to their car in the morning, the windows would be smashed, and stuff would, in many cases, stuff was not even stolen because there was nothing of value in the car, but the windows were smashed. And repeatedly, I heard people say, "Well, there's nothing in my car. People are just doing this to smash windows." every time I walk by their car, to me, not knowing what's in the car, it looked like something was in the car. There was always a box, a blanket, trash, or whatever it was. There was always something in the car. And I remember having these conversations saying, do you realize anything in the car looks appealing to a criminal?
The right
When we
person,
say you
yeah.
shouldn't have anything in the car, we don't mean anything of value. We mean literally nothing should be in your
Yep.
car. And it was amazing people didn't get that level of understanding and dealt with smashed windows. Our car, on the
Until
other
something
hand,
happens. Yeah.
yeah, we never had a smashed window, and we also never kept anything in our car. If you looked in it, you just saw an empty car. But
Mm.
anyway, maybe we just got lucky.
Well, that's why I'm here today, is because
Hmm.
most of us have, meaning a lot of people who have open source, sites like WordPress or Joomla or Drupal, that's a pretty common mindset, I think, a pretty common mental model to think that, we're good, or maybe the hosting company's taking care of security, or,
Right.
I pay for hosting, so they should be taking care of. And that's not how it is. It's the same like when we buy a car from a manufacturer, they're not responsible for our security either. Right?
Hmm.
We have to lock the car. We have to park it in a place that makes sense. We have to, minimize those kind of lures that are going to attract the kind of attention that we don't want. And that's what we're talking
Hmm.
about today, right?
So we're
And
talking about
OWASP has,
websites for the most part, and today when we're talking about application security, talking about websites.
yep, we're
Um,
specifically talking today about websites. Yep.
okay.
Even though application security is much farther reaching,
Hmm.
further reaching than
Hmm.
that. And OWASP has this famous top 10, right? And we're not going to go through each of them. I'm going to draw attention to the ones that probably matter to most people, right? There's a lot of these things that we can talk about maybe in another episode, but for today, I want to talk about these three. I want to talk about cross-site scripting, and secure. Some of these things, like this is a big one. Let's start here with using components with known vulnerabilities. Now, if we build a WordPress site for our business, or a Drupal site, whatever, there's tons of free plugins and themes and all kinds of functionality
Hmm.
we can add to those sites, right? Um, it's not unusual for us to install a plugin or whatever that has a
Hmm.
vulnerability that we don't know about, right? And so the more functionality that we build into our websites, our security tends to decrease in direct proportion to the amount
Hmm.
of functionality that we add, right? So this is something that is worth talking about. If you're using a lot of plugins and you're not updating the site a lot, or your developer, whoever is maintaining your website for you, if they're not updating the software, meaning the WordPress
Hmm.
itself or the Drupal itself, and then also the plugins and all the free stuff that you add, those are probably 80% of the time the issue when those things are left to decay and not be updated. And so
Yeah. So
keeping your
if I could
software
just
up to
reiterate,
date.
someone sets up a website, or they pay a developer to set it up, and they use software. In this case, we're talking about WordPress, but it could be any number of software applications. And then they use add-ons or plugins. And then they pretty much, the term is, they set it and forget it, meaning the website, maybe they'll update some copy if they hire somebody, or they need to change, update their blog or something. But the underlying framework of the website's not really getting any love or attention. And just like any application today, vulnerabilities, compromises are found, bug fixes are released, security updates are released, and somebody has to be taking care of that. And what we're finding is a lot of people don't do that until they get compromised.
That's right.
Right.
And so it's just
Yeah.
like anything else. If we have an iPhone or a laptop, it's important for us to keep that software up to date. It's also important to keep our software up to date on our websites, and that
Yeah.
includes
So
plugins or anything.
yeah. So I would say for anyone who has a website, and I would assume that's everybody who listens to this podcast, or this live stream has a website, I would ask yourself, who is in charge of keeping your website up to date and patched? And if you don't know, talk to your developer, the developer of your website. Or if you still don't know, reach out to us so we can help you figure it out. Chances
Yep.
are we're not going to know either, just because we typically do not do any website work. Like, that's not our specialty. But we can certainly facilitate those conversations, and we often do. We often help introduce people to website developers, or we talk about website technology. So yeah, this is a great point. Like, people need to be aware of this, and we're talking about this because there have been some recent activity with people getting their websites hacked, right?
Yeah, way common, and it's just something that is so preventable, right? But we just have to be
Hmm.
aware of it, and a few minutes of our time can save hours and
Hmm.
hours of pain. Logging and monitoring is another thing. A lot of websites, modern day websites, we have
Hmm.
firewalls for our networks, and we have firewalls that keep us safe. On our devices have, some of our devices
Hmm.
have firewalls too. So do websites. But in about 90% of at least my experience, most people don't have what's called the web application firewall that prevents
Hmm.
these real low level, simple kinds of attacks from having any impact. And so number 10 here, and the OWASP top 10 is insufficient logging and monitoring. And we highly recommend, there are application firewalls out there that are free that can do, a certain amount of the heavy lifting. We just have to know to use those tools.
Hmm. Chad, you reminded me. I don't think you were with our team, but you may have heard this story. Years ago, our website that hosts our ticketing system, Zendesk, um, got compromised. And I'll explain in a minute. But in order to open a ticket with us, you can email us, and it will automatically generate a ticket. But there's also a web form where you can submit a ticket. And there were ways, and there are ways today, to lock that down very tightly so that only people who can log in can create a ticket. Now, we've opted, at least back then, and we've had to change some things since then, but back then we're like, you know what? We know that people, when they're stressed out, when they need help, the last thing they want to do is be asked for a username and password to submit a request. So we're going to let anyone who wants to submit a request. And 99.9% of the time, only clients ever did that. Occasionally, we'd have somebody that we had no idea who they were asking us a question, and we would politely ask them if, are you associated with any of our clients? We don't see you in our database, et cetera, et cetera. The point being, one morning we woke up to, I think it was like 20,000 tickets and growing. So somebody had basically done an attack, and it looked like they were all coming from, I don't know, Russia or Ukraine area. It was like they were all foreign locations, and it was just an automated bot, like, generating ticket after ticket after ticket. And we had to work with Zendesk to stop it, and they built a little app to clean that up, because you can imagine, I think by the time we stopped it, we're at like 40,000 tickets, and just manually deleting 40,000 tickets would take forever. Even with automation, it took hours to clean that up.
Yep.
And we
Yep.
had to enforce, okay, well, apparently the internet cannot be trusted with free and open forms. We have to put something on there. So we put on a CAPTCHA. So now you have to fill out a CAPTCHA. And I think we had to do one other level, because that wasn't quite enough. We have yet to go to a full on, you have to log in, but eventually we maybe we'll have to do that.
It's really important, they call them WAFs for short, WAF, Web Application Firewall, and it just is something in between here, between maybe me, as my website, but otherwise, there's really nothing preventing just anybody. Kind of, I love your analogy, Ben, as anybody walking by the car, as it were, or the
Hmm.
website, as it were, to pass through this barrier, right? And this application firewall is important because we can tell it to behave in a very predictable way to just minimize a lot of those. It's kind of like leaving the door unlocked. Even if we leave the door unlocked, we've got another layer of security
Hmm.
to kind of help minimize those kinds of preventable things. And so it's important to just keep each other educated. There are lots of tools out there that can raise the cost for these criminals to maybe go find somebody else they want to mess with.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions at all about your website and how to secure it, reach out to us so we can help you. Either talk to your developer or take a look at what you have and see if there's anything we can do to advise you. We are not um, web hosting experts. That's not our focus, but we certainly know people who are, so we can help. So, Chad, thanks for that. We're trying to keep this to half hour, so we'll transition to the Apple stuff I mentioned. And I love the cool new tools that you have. Hopefully, I will get mine working soon, so we'll have a completely integrated system. I see you got a
Awesome.
nice camera as well. So very cool. Let me see. I'm going to share my Safari screen. Let me know. Can you see that?
Coming up. Yeah, there it is.
Let me get it full screen. Okay. So Apple recently released updates to iOS and iPadOS and watchOS and basically and tvOS, everything except for macOS, which is coming very soon. And really, macOS is where we live most of the time in our world, but we know our clients also have iPhones, so I think it's worth talking about iOS just a little bit. In fact, today it was announced that some researcher estimates that Apple has more than 1 billion people using an iPhone today. Now they've sold more than 1 billion iPhones. I think they've even sold more than 2 billion, but 1 billion people actively using an iPhone is the estimate today. So chances are you're using an iPhone. And Apple came out with some new features. I just wanted to show a few because I attended an Apple um, webinar for us in the industry talking about how iOS is being used in businesses and showing some of the new features. And I was not even aware of the new features because there's so many. It's hard to keep up, really. And so I just wanted to show a couple here. And because my phone is not set up for a live demo, meaning I would expose personal and private information if I tried to do that, I'm going to stick to screenshots and K-base articles. But it's very easy to follow along at home, and I would recommend doing that. So one of the things or that I find interesting is this in iOS is this app library. If you haven't done this, and it only works on iOS, it does not work on iPad, and I don't know why. I'm sure they'll introduce it to iPad eventually. But on iOS, if you've ever had troubles finding an application, and I often will just search for an app and find it, and that's great. But if you've ever wanted to search and destroy an app, meaning get rid of it because you're done with it, have you ever tried to do that, Chad or Michelle? And you don't even know where the app is, and so you have to go through every screen, icon by icon. I have way too many apps; takes me way too much time. I miss it. I go through it again. There was one app I can't remember what it was, but I was trying to find it so I could delete it, and I think I eventually gave up. Never found it. Well, now it's so much easier to find. If you swipe all the way to your last home screen and go beyond, you'll be presented with this app library. And at first, it looks like this, but if you click deeper, it will look like this. And then you can even scroll down when you're on this page, and you'll have a search bar. And the search bar will show you alphabetically all your apps. And you can actually click and hold from here and delete the app if you want to. So it sounds like a really small thing, but it's a huge step forward for finding apps and making adjustments to them. So I find
You
this
bring up a
really
really
helpful.
you bring up a
Yeah,
really
Chad.
good point too. That well, just that a good security sometimes is the art of removal, right?
Yeah,
Is really removing apps we don't use or accounts that we're not using. It's a huge value to all of us to do that.
yeah. I think it was WhatsApp. I knew I had WhatsApp and I could find it and I could launch it, but I couldn't find
Couldn't
where on
figure
my
it out.
phone it was. And I was like, I'll deal with it later. Well, now it's pretty easy using this app library view.
It is.
Anyone who's running iOS 14 can do this. Home screen widgets, this is more of a just kind of visual feature that Apple's pushing pretty hard, and it is pretty cool. I made some edits to my home screen. You can add all sorts of widgets, and as developers develop more widgets into the applications, we'll all have more options. But I have a little iPhoto or Photos widget on my home screen. So every time I open up my phone, I see kind of like an old photo memory, that from the past, and that's kind of fun and cool. And you can click on it and see what you did that day and what photos were taken. So there's all sorts of widgets. I would recommend exploring widgets. Um, Let's see. Yeah, they made some interface changes, which everyone will notice whether they care to or not. Siri doesn't block the entire screen. It just shows up as a little bubble here when you're using Siri. And when a phone call comes up, instead of taking over the entire screen, once again, it's just a little
That's
window. And
nice. I like that.
yeah, I do like that.
I
Yeah,
like that a lot.
both of
I like
these
that a
are,
lot.
yeah, really nice improvements. And then here's one, pinned messages and conversations. Um, so this is pinned messages, pretty straightforward. If you pin a message, it will show up here, and you can have up to 9 pinned messages, so 3 rows of 3 on your iOS device, and those can just be shortcuts for having conversations. People you communicate with a lot, they will always stay at the top of the screen, which is really nice. And then one of the features I did not know about, and I actually added a link to our article here, which we posted, and Michelle posted, I don't know how many weeks ago. Um, it's called Inline Replies and Mentions. Chad and Michelle, have either of you tried this?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool.
It is. Yeah, it's much easier
If
to.
Yeah, if you're talking to, first of all, let's go back a bit, and for anyone who communicates with people on messages, and I often was confused about the difference between messages and iMessages. And anyone who follows along may remember that iMessages, or the iMessage app, is what it used to be called, and now it's simply called Messages. However, iMessage is still a thing, and so Messages is the app, but Messages can do both text messages and iMessages. Text messages are green, iMessages are blue. So green are those communications you have with people who are not on an iPhone, not using iMessage. And blue are those conversations you're having with other iPhone users who are using iMessage. And iMessage gives you a lot more options, including now the ability to reply in line. So when you click and hold a message, we are most likely familiar with these, the heart, the thumbs up, thumbs down. But now you have the option to reply. So when you reply, I don't know if they have a screen grab. No, they don't have a screen grab here. But when you reply, you essentially reply in line, meaning if you've ever joined a chat and there are 10 messages that have been posted and you want to say something about the second message, it can often get confusing because you make a comment and people are like, "What are you talking about? That was hours ago."
Totally.
Uh,
Right.
so now you can go up to any of those messages, click hold, click reply, and it will link it to the very message that you're replying to. And I think that's really nice. But
It is.
beware, I tried this with a group of friends, and not everyone had upgraded to iOS 14. So some people on the group chat were trying to do this and they couldn't because they need to upgrade. And I don't believe it's available in any mixed company groups. Meaning, if it's a green conversation, and this is what's a little frustrating. I don't have an answer for it, but you got a group of people. Everyone has an iPhone except for one person. They
Yeah.
don't have an iPhone. Well, that group becomes green, and you can. I've noticed Apple has actually introduced some functionality. Like I can say, I like something or I love something, and it will say to the person in green, Ben, and basically everyone on the chat, I think, Ben says he liked this message. It like types it out versus showing the heart. Um, and I don't know if they've quite figured out how to make that integrated, because I've seen that work and I've seen it not work, but I don't think replies work in this situation. But replies are very cool. And then mentions is something else I did not know about. So you can mention someone just simply by typing their name, and it's a little tricky because you have to type their name or type the app followed by their name, but it doesn't seem to automatically happen. You have to almost like let it pause and let this hover over the name to see this pop up, and then click on the
And they
pop
have to
up,
be a contact. Yeah.
and they have to be a contact. Yeah. So it took me a few tries to actually use this feature. Um, so read the instructions, try it out. But basically, especially in a group, if you're trying to draw attention to someone and mention their name, it will, from their view, highlight their name and just draw their attention to it a little more. And most apps today have mentions, so it's almost strange that Apple took this long to introduce mentions, but it is working now, and it's pretty hidden. Like, I think you can. I've been typing names, and it just wasn't happening automatically. You have to, as it says here, open a message, type a contact's name, then tap the name. I think that's the feature, the step I was missing. You have to tap the name to get
That's
this
right.
mention to pop up. So give those a try, and let's see, well, I got one more thing. Yeah, we got just a couple minutes. The other thing I wanted to mention is, and let's see if I can pull this up. No, I don't. Let's see. Let me try to copy. Let me try to copy and paste from my iPad. When this works, it's fantastic. When it doesn't work, um, it's frustrating. But look at this. It did work. So I basically took a link from my iPad, which is not physically connected in any way other than through Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, I guess, communication. But physically, there's no connection between my iPad and my Mac. But I was able to copy a link from my iPad and paste it onto my Mac. And the reason I could do that is because I use the same iCloud account on both devices. So for anyone who's trying to do that and it's not working, you have to use the same iCloud account. You may have to turn on, Chad, I don't know if you know or recall, you may have to turn on some other, like, secure your privacy feature to allow that to
I'm sorry.
happen.
I'm in a call right now, buddy. I'll have you do it after when I'm done, though. Thank you. You're a sweetheart.
May I boil it?
Now is not a good time. Thank you, buddy.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
So that's okay.
Yes,
So just to wrap this up, the other thing about iPad OS 14 specifically was all the new features with Apple Pencil. And I don't know how many people watching this or listening to it have an Apple Pencil. I have one, and I play around with it now and then. And some days I think, oh yes, this is awesome. This is the future. Other days I'm like, I'm just faster typing, and I won't last very long with the pencil. But the things that they've done with the pencil are pretty amazing. You can write and basically copy and paste as text.
Mm-hmm.
How accurate is that? I personally haven't used it enough to know. Obviously, in the demos, it works perfectly every time, but I'm sure it's not that perfect. And then also, you can write. Do they show it here? Yeah, you can just use the pencil to write in like maps, and it will convert it into text. So for anyone who just doesn't like typing with their thumbs and prefers to write, very cool. So huge step forward with Apple Pencil. I just want to let people know about that. And the last thing I'll mention is, and this gets a little more technical, and we haven't seen it yet, but macOS Big Sur, you've heard us talk about it. It's coming out later probably in November. I don't think it's coming out in October, but I could be wrong. Could come out this week. We don't know. But it's supposed to come out soon. We've been running the beta. So far, so good. It looks great. We do recommend, once again, that you not rush out on day one and run the macOS Big Sur update. We will be doing our best to block Big Sur and allow teams who have vetted it and are ready to make the move. We will lift that block, but we want to have a conversation with you. And when I say we're going to try to block it, what typically happens is we will have the beta blocked because we know how that works. And then Apple will do something at the last minute when they release it that changes the way our blocking mechanism works, and we have to make changes to catch up. So Apple, despite the fact that they're getting better at communicating what's happening, they still can surprise us, and they can surprise a lot of developers. And that's why it's always a good idea not to embrace really any Apple update on day one. let the internet embrace it and figure out the problems. And then once everything sounds good and is working, then you can adopt it. If you have any questions
Let the
about
people
that,
with
reach out
time
to us.
fix
What's
everything.
that?
Let the people who have extra time fix everything.
Yes.
You know, if things are
Yes.
working, just don't upgrade. If things are working,
Yeah.
enjoy that. Be grateful for that, because usually when we upgrade, there's always some hoops to jump through, right, to get things back to normal.
Yeah. And so one of the things I found interesting, this is a little technical, but I just wanted to share it, is Apple says that they learned both from iOS and from tvOS how to improve the update process in macOS. So they're touting sort of preemptively that we're going to see faster updates in macOS. And I think we would all agree that updates are different than upgrades. Upgrades can take a long time no matter what device you're on, but updates, those incremental updates on iOS, are pretty straightforward and quick. You see an update, you apply it, maybe it asks for your password as verification, the phone restarts and you're good to go. On the Mac, some updates, they can take 15 or 20 minutes, and you don't really know that until you hit yes, I'll do that, right before a meeting. And then your Mac is restarting with a dialog box that says estimated time 14 minutes. So I think everyone will welcome faster updates on Mac OS. And they also announced, I don't have a visual for this. In fact, we Apple changes things so often I can't even say what the results are yet. But Apple announced more MDM controls, and what that means is more mobile device management controls. Which what that means is, as an enterprise, you will have more control over the security settings and functionality of Apple devices. And I say this all the time, but we all play in Apple's playground. Apple is very concerned about security and privacy. And sometimes the needs of the organization and the needs, especially security and privacy of the individual, don't always align perfectly. And you have to find that balance. So as Apple gives more control to what's called mobile device management, that's over-the-air management. Those are a lot of the things that we're involved in implementing. That is constantly changing, and we're going to get even more updates and changes in Big Sur. The point being, if you have questions about what you want to accomplish from an organizational level, from a security level, from a efficiency and productivity level, reach out to us, and we may have ideas, or we can discuss what things we're allowed to do using the Apple ecosystem, which is getting stronger and stronger with every update, and it's really exciting. I know that's vague, and once we get more details on that, we'll talk more about it and give you some real world examples that you can go off of. But for now, I think that does it. We've reached the half hour. Chad, Michelle, any questions? Anything we want to wrap with?
No.
Okay.
Thanks for listening.
Chad, show us fade to black. Can you do that? Can you fade out?
I can.
Can you just? There you go.
That's
Okay,
pretty cool.
awesome. Thanks. Okay, we'll see y'all later. Oh, one more thing. We're going to switch to every other week, bi-weekly, every other week. And I think I even mentioned this last week, but I have my schedule off. And so this is the last one before every other week. So live stream will be in 2 weeks. And then Chad and I will host our podcast next week, Chad, have we gotten our last podcast up?
I think you might have lost him already.
Maybe. I think he just faded to black.
He faded to black and then he's gone.
And they left. Well, anyway, that's the plan. Live stream podcast, alternate throughout, and that'll be easier for us to deliver, hopefully even better content so that we can focus on. So, okay, thank you all. Have a great rest of your week. Talk to you later. Bye.